Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It's Sunday, August 22nd. I am trying to fit this in between rain because there was a downpour about 20 minutes ago and I have a skylight right above me and it's loud when it rains like that. So it seems to have petered off. I'm hoping it stays this way as long as I need to film today. Here on the East Coast, we are getting the edges of Hurricane Henry, which may have been downgraded to a tropical storm in the last couple hours. I'm not sure. I'm in New Jersey, so we are not in any way getting a direct hit. It seems to be going more toward Connecticut, New York, and yes, expect some flooding kind of things, and we'll just hope that it's nothing more than that. Anyway, there we go. It is a week, or less than a week, until Needlework Expo. If you are not familiar, Needlework Expo is an online wholesale opportunity. So store owners go and purchase directly from designers and thread companies and fabric companies and accessories like needle minders. And then they have a new stock that they'll be sharing with all their customers. If you are familiar with Nashville market, which usually happens in March, did not happen in 2021. Things are on track, planned for it to happen in 2022. It is the idea of a Nashville market, but not in person, instead doing it online. And this, opens up all kinds of opportunities in terms of locations. I know last time in March I had the opportunity, I was talking to a store owner from Australia, and I don't know if that store owner would necessarily have traveled to the US for Nashville. Maybe they would have, I don't know, because I know at least one designer comes from Australia. Anyway, doing this online is in a lot of ways makes sense in the 21st century. No one wants to take away from the in-person experience, and we are hoping to go back to having those 2022. So, because it is Needlework Expo, I have some new designs to share with you. I have to say, if you watched my last video, one of the first things I commented on was about the lighting and that I needed to get off filming and go order a ring light. So I did. And I'm still trying to figure out like the best placement and all of that, but hopefully it's a little bit better than the last couple of videos have been. So, new designs I am excited to share with you. First one up is called Elegant Lace. If you are familiar with my work, I love doing these lace designs. And I just, I keep building on different ideas, different pieces of lace that I'm working off of. So this one I stitched using DMC Floche and DMC Floss. Now, if you're not familiar with Floche, it is it's thicker than one strand. Frankly, I use it because I'm a little lazy. If you look at the more dense areas, you could achieve that same effect with just 2 strands of floss. But the point, whenever it was I discovered Floche and started playing with it, I realized it's basically a way to only use 1 strand where you really need 2 strands, particularly on 36 count. I gotta double check myself, 36 count. Yes. So, if you love this design, don't feel like you have to acquire Floche somewhere. I get it off of someone on Etsy. My LNS doesn't carry it. So the more dense areas are Floche, like I said, could be 2 strands of regular DMC. The lighter areas are 1 strand of DMC floss and only a 10th stitch, which is to say only like half a cross stitch. And it just allows for this kind of effect that I just have loved so much. The stitch count is 169 over 169. So, I've done these lace designs that have been a variety of sizes. This is a good, like, medium size. Some of them have definitely been larger, some have been smaller. Is there anything else I needed to say about this? Of course, you don't need to do it in white. You could do whatever color you want. And so, again, I love these designs, and I hope some of you like it as well. The next one to share with you, I'm rearranging my life here, called The Labyrinth of Rhymes Cathedral. There's the title, The Labyrinth. So Reims. It is in France. It's about 90 miles east of Paris, if you were to look it up. Reims? I should have looked that up before I started filming. Last summer, I forget exactly what started me on it. I want to say I was looking at some math-related things. I'm a math teacher, and saw something about labyrinths, and I was starting to look into labyrinths. And there are some that are very well known, like the one in Chartres Cathedral, and it's a circular one, which many of them are. But I learned not all of them. And so labyrinths have this history, many of them tied with cathedrals from like the Renaissance time and so on, but certainly not limited to that. And I discovered this one as being so unique shape-wise. What else was unique about it is that in the original, there were actually little pictures, shapes of five men that are believed to have been the architects and the builders of the cathedral. Anyway, I discovered this. I thought the shape was so unique. And at first it was just like, let me see if I could chart this. And I was really pleased how I was able to put it together. And then I'm like, well, I really like it. Let me go ahead and do something with it. I think the history behind this is so fascinating. The labyrinth itself does not exist anymore. It was destroyed in the late 1700s. But there was records of it, and there was interest in it in the later 1800s, and then it shows up in all kinds of places, like labyrinth chapters of math books or whatever. I found it all so interesting. In the chart, in the pattern, you get 2 pages of my research history about this cathedral and the labyrinth in the cathedral, or that was once in the cathedral. I did the labyrinth, and I'm like, okay. Oh, let me say, it is stitched on 32 count 32 count exotic orchid Lugana. It's a Zweigart color. It's just a solid color. I really like it. I'm gonna have to remember this color for other uses. And the black is DMC Etoile, which you may or may not be able to see the shimmer of it, but the light is actually helping me do this. So perhaps you can see there's some other shimmering parts of this. So the path, let me back up. A labyrinth, and the word labyrinth and the word maze sometimes get used interchangeably, understandably. By mathematical definition, a labyrinth is a path that only has one way to go. You go in, you usually get yourself to the center. A maze is when you go in and at various places you have choices. And if your goal is like to get to the center, sometimes you make a choice and it leads you to a dead end. And so you backtrack and you do that. And there's plenty of mazes around the world, like hedge mazes and corn mazes during the fall. But a labyrinth is only one path. So I decided to stitch the path of the labyrinth. And because I got my head into this like sparkly thing, which is what got me using the Etoile, I was looking for something that would work, that would be not in your face. I don't know how else to describe it. You may or may not be familiar with the Kreinik threads. I know some of you are familiar with that is very fine braid, and I know many cross stitchers don't like using it. To each his own. You may be familiar with blending filament, and if I hold these two together, perhaps you can see the blending filament is much finer. Blending filament is usually used like with one strand of floss and one strand of blending filament, and you get like a shiny metallic-y look to it. There is something else that I don't think people are as familiar with, and it's called cord. Cord. I find it easier to use than braid. It doesn't have the bumpiness. That's bumpy is not the right word, because braid is literally threads that have been braided. There's like some texture to it, and cord doesn't have that texture. It is fine, but not as fine as blending filament. And it turned out to be the perfect thing for me to use here. Now keep in mind, you do not need to use the threads I did. You can do this design using 2 colors, or frankly, you could just do like the black outlines. So I'd stitched designed and stitched the labyrinth, and like, it looks too empty. So I wanted to create a border. And what I did is I turned back to the cathedral looking for ideas, because that cathedral, like I think many, Renaissance and, oh my God, the time period before Renaissance, because it was built in the 13th century. There's statues, there's gargoyle, there's all kinds of stuff. One thing that makes that cathedral unique is it has 2 rose windows on the same wall. Most, if not all, cathedrals have rose windows. Many of them have more than one. This cathedral has 2 of them on the same wall, and that's where I got my inspiration from. So, and in the research stuff, I'll show you in that picture. You see the shape of that, and then obviously the circular shape there. So that shape there is what I used to create the border. I then decided, well, this cord, I needed to fill it in there. And then I'm like, still looks kind of, So I used the cord to do a filling in between the border and the labyrinth. I like the way it looks. I like how on this video it's showing up, because I could not capture that when doing pictures. So if you don't want to do that part, you don't have to. But if you like to do something a little different, there it is. And then, last thing to show you new, it has been a little bit of time since, at least I think, since I've put out a blackwork pattern. And I was thinking this time around, I wanted to do a blackwork pattern. And what I ended up creating was a Biscornu. So there's the front of the Biscornu, or excuse me, the top, and the bottom looks like this. If you have never done blackwork before, give it a try. I mean, you could find plenty of like free patterns and so on online if you want to like literally try something new. So yes, blackwork is like the stitching of back stitching. And if you're a non-back stitching person, I know that could turn you off. But what I've learned is that there definitely are some people that will say, hey, I don't like back stitching. But there's something about only doing that kind of stitch without cross stitch in between that appeals. So you could see the design is like a, now that I'm thinking about it, it's almost like a rose window of a cathedral, which is so not what was in my mind when I did this. And then the bottom area as well. If you've never created a Biscornu before, there are plenty of tutorials online. As a teacher, a middle school math teacher, I'm very aware when some kid says, oh, that's so easy, because there's a good chance there's someone else in the classroom that is thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to do with this. And so I'm always, letting kids know, hey, you know what, that's how you might feel about it, but let's be aware, this is not an easy problem, whatever. And so I don't want to say, assembling a Biscornu is easy, because it may be for some and it may not be for others. My way of trying to tackle something new is I do like watch a video or, see what I can learn about it before I attempt it myself. And sometimes there are things I look at, I'm like, I think I could give that a try. Sometimes there's like, I'm just gonna mess that up. Anyway, if you are a Biscornu person or you want to give something new a try, here is my blackwork Biscornu. So these will be available to store owners next weekend at Expo. They will not be in my Etsy store for about a month or so. This is the opportunity for you to support your needlework stores, whether they're brick and mortar or online. If you are following, particularly on Instagram, but probably on Facebook as well, in various places, a lot of designers are doing reveals of the pieces. And then you could say, oh my gosh, I love this, that, and the other. Let me contact my store and have them make sure they get it for me. That's not the only way to do it, because stores are going to be purchasing beyond what customers have requested, so they have some new merchandise to share. So be on the lookout for lots of new things coming that have already been shared, but being in the stores in the next few weeks. And Support your stores, support your designers. Let's keep this wonderful world, our stitching world, going. So I have a few other things to share with you that are not cross-stitch related, but are all stitching related. If you have been with me before, you know, in addition to cross-stitch, I do other kinds of things, and this just all kind of, oh, there's one thing that's cross-stitch. This all kind of came together at the same time. So I wanted to share with you that I finished, I guess it doesn't even matter which way I hold it, this design. It is a woman, her company is called Wolfratsen. She's from the Netherlands. I'll put a link below. She does this unique embroidery. I mean, you could see it's a fabric, not like cross-stitch fabric. It's like a cotton fabric. I bought it at Joann's. And this is just DMC threads. And this design of hers, I think, is just called something like Open Circle. She's got some stuff on her website about how she stitches these. It's a very relaxing kind of stitch. You know, once you've traced out the design and you know what colors you're putting where, it's just straight stitches, satin stitches. So I loved working on this. I think I shared another one that I had done earlier. Will I do others? I don't know. It's not out of the question. Something I shared with you last time was a little exploration into a new kind of stitching for me. In my recent move, I uncovered all kinds of things that I wanted to give a try to. And this was one. This is a pattern I picked up a number of years ago. Swedish weave, Huck embroidery, Swedish embroidery. There's a variety of names for it. I know I picked this up at a store where I must have seen an actual model, because on its own it wouldn't have intrigued me, but I must have been intrigued by the stitching. And so I did my little, it doesn't matter which way I hold it, my little playing with just like the rectangle, you know, one rectangle, like the green one that's on that pillow there. I was not using the proper fabric. There's something called monk's cloth, although this pattern does say you could use Aida. I just found this scrap of, it's actually called Devosa. What thread was I using? Well, I opened up my containers of thread just to find something that would work on this kind of fabric, which I'm pretty sure was 18 count. And I think I was aiming for, let me see what like a 12 pearl cotton looked like. And sitting on top was one of my Flosh colors. Let me give that a try. That's what I ended up using here. So it was just the opportunity to try something new. Will I do another one? I don't know. I'm going to say probably not. I kind of got this out of my system, and that's sometimes what it is when it comes to needlework. I just want to try something and I want to finish it and be done with it, and that's great. If I had used the proper monk's cloth, I believe you wouldn't even see any thread on the back. I need to play with it to actually make sure I'm saying this correctly, but I think the way that fabric is constructed, when you do the underneath, it doesn't show up. If I ever get a chance, I'll do what I'm talking about, and I'll either be right or wrong, and maybe I'll have something to share with all of you. So there you go, my little experiment with Huck embroidery, Swedish embroidery, Swedish weaving, whatever we want to call it. Speaking of experiments, if you have not already heard, some people have not, in Michael's, and I believe Joann's, I don't know about any other big box stores, they have started selling anchor thread on a spool. And if you know about anchor threads, you could sort of say it's like a competitor of DMC, but for all these years, Anchor, to my knowledge, has only been sold in small needlework stores, not in the big box stores like Michael's and Joann's. Recently learned about this online. I'm like, what? This is cool. Got to go check it out. Sure enough, I headed to my Michael's and there was a stand of them, nowhere near the total number of colors that Anchor actually puts out, but a fair number. They come on spools that have 10 meters or 10.9 yards. And it's like the six strands that you would separate, you know, just like you would if it was a skein. And it's something new to try. So These were a little bit more than a DMC skein, but there's more thread on it. And I feel like I read somewhere, someone who actually, said that literally this is maybe 1 penny more per yard or something like that. So I know there's some people in particular who feel very strongly about Anchor Black being better than DMC Black. And I was just kind of curious. So I started doing a little experimenting. And this is just Lugana, I'm pretty sure, white fabric. Now, I am pretty sure this isn't going to show up very well on a video, but it just gives you a sense. I did an experiment. If you are interested, you could do it yourself. So over here, that is Anchor on a spool. Next to it is Anchor on a skein. Next to that is DMC on a skein. And then if you look at these three, it maybe you could sort of see the DMC on the bottom doesn't have as good of coverage as the Anchor. There you go. I was also curious, what happens if you spend a little more time/effort? So above that, I railroaded my stitches. And then above that, I laid my stitches using a laying tool. Now, if I can avoid railroading or using a laying tool, I will. I think most of us will. But again, it just became an interesting thing that I could say that the laid stitches of DMC are pretty equivalent to the Anchor stitches. Did I see much of a difference between the Anchor spool and Anchor skein? I don't think so. It's the kind of thing that you really have to do for yourself and say, this is worth it, this is not worth it. I think, though, now that Anchor is more available, and for those of you that have an LNS that sells it, please support your LNS. But now that they're making Anchor thread more available, there's a number of people who have, like, let's say a monochrome design. They want to do it all in black, and they want to get a whole bunch of Anchor skeins because they say it's better coverage, and they may have been challenged getting the Anchor skeins and so on, and now it'll be easier. So this wasn't good enough of an experiment. I needed to see what would happen if I did it in white. So, side note, I found this little scrap in my, I know where I got it. I have some scraps like this. And I gotta remember this. This is a 32 count linen Zweigart called Dark Chocolate. And I gotta get me more of this because I think this is a really nice color. So what can I hold behind it? There we go. So same idea, Anchor spool, Anchor skein, DMC skein, stitching normal, DMC skein, stitching, railroading my stitches, and DMC skein, laying them with a laying tool. This time around, again, if I look at it in person, I would say the DMC stitches, even the ones that are just quote normal, is slightly better coverage than the Anchor stitches. And I don't know. Well, then maybe that's as close as I could get for being in focus. With, of course, railroading and then laying them looking even better. So, white is, there's challenges with white, like if you're doing a whole solid area with white. Take my little experiments as you will. I'll keep these around. I don't know if I will ever say, oh my gosh, I absolutely need to do that design using the Anchor Black because it's going to be better than the DMC Black. But do I know that there are people that want to do it that way? Absolutely. And so it's not in all stores. I know my Michaels had it, but I had first learned about it from a friend who posted it from a Joann's ad. And I searched on Joann's, and the website was saying that my local Joann's did not have it. This was a few weeks ago. I was actually at Joann's a few days ago, and they definitely don't have it there, at that Joann's. But like I said, my Michaels had it. So check into it if it's something you're interested in. And then, a little bit on the experiment line, a few weeks ago, was looking for information about Soie d'Agé and the Soie 100/3, that those two silk threads, which I know my LNS carries at least many of the colors, and I was thinking, okay, next time I go up there, I need to look at them a little bit more. And then I'm like, when am I going to get up there? And anyway, I was online because what I knew that the 100/3 was a finer thread than one strand of the soie d'Alger. But I wanted to know how much of a difference. And it's Access Commodities is the company that I think the proper wording is that they import the threads. I'm not sure who owns what, but Access Commodities. And I went on their website and I couldn't find the information that I wanted, which is, some structure of, well, this is what it's based off of. I have a book that I use for bobbin lace. Bobbin lace is another craft, hobby, art that I enjoy. And I often pick this up when it comes to stitching needlework stuff. This is it's amazing. Sort of on a very scientific level, this woman has given all threads that she has, which is a lot of them, a number based on how many wraps it takes to fill. I think it's an inch or a centimeter. She gives everything a number, and the higher the number, the finer the thread. And so one strand of DMC is a 26, I think. So that just gives you a sense of what's finer, what's thicker. And I could not find these Access Commodities Avera Soie, whatever words we're using, or whatever, Avera Soie versus Access Commodities. Anyway, most of them, they were not in here. So I was online looking around. And when I was on the Access Commodities site, I saw something that really intrigued me. They had this little, for lack of better words, sampler pack. And I hemmed and hawed, and a couple weeks later, I decided to get one. I ordered this from someone on either Etsy or eBay. The Access Commodities site is only like a wholesale thing. And I mean, I suppose I could have poked around and found a store that might be carrying them. I don't know. But I found someone who had a number of them online. You get it by color. So you could get the green pack or the red pack or the blue pack, and the blue pack is what I got. It came with 9 threads. And you could see number 2 and number 3 on that list are the 2 threads I'm talking about. But then there's a whole bunch others. Some of these I'd heard of before for different reasons, and some of them I was like, wonder what that is. So now this is a container I bought at Michael's. This is not, it doesn't come like this. It just comes in a little plastic thing. So here's the Avera Soie d'Alger that many people are familiar with. And this is the 103. But then there's these others. There are a total of 6 silks, 2 metallics, and 1 linen. Okay, so you know what I did with the DMC and the anchor thing? Well, here's what I did with my new threads. Now I know there's basically minimal way you can see much of whatever I might try to describe. Like, for example, this one is the say shiniest silk. Sure, I'll say shiniest. But do I know that that's not going to come through, on a camera? Sure. I was playing around which of the finer ones that a person would use for, 1/1 stitching. This is a 32, I don't think it's 36, a 32 count scrap that I had. So there's the 103 that many people will use for 1/1. This is what it looks like, just one strand of cross stitches. Here's the soie d'Alger. There's 1 strand. There's 2 strands. There's me doing it 1/1, and I would not, it doesn't look great to me. But like this one, I don't know if I've heard of this before. It seems to be almost as fine as the 103. You could see the 1 strand. The 1/1 on this I think was easier than doing it here. The metallics, these are the 2 metallics down here. Try them with both 1 strand and 2 strands. I was surprised. They're both relatively fine metallics. Like, you could see what it looks like 1 strand versus the 2 strands. The linen thread, I was trying to remember. Does or did DMC at one point have a line of linen threads? Like, not that many, and I'm trying to think, are they still around? Because I don't think I'm making that up. I think they had linen threads, and I wondered, I might even have one if I dig through my containers enough. Anyway, when I saw what it's called, which is Londonderry, this is the Londonderry, I was like, oh, I know what that is, because I've used it in bobbin lace. And I went through my containers and I found these two, and I'm like, why do I have these colors of this thread? And then I remembered it was a flower thing that I was doing. The flower was in pink, the leaves were in green. This that I'm familiar with is a finer, like this one says it's a 50. You see that? And this one's an 80. So 80 is finer. So these were ones that I used for bobbin lace. I've learned I don't like using linen threads in lace. I'll use cotton. I will use silk, but from after a few projects doing linen, I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I also feel like I had heard about this and own some from over there are Yvette Stanton's books. I think I talked about this last time. And her book that's early hardanger. So not the more modern hardanger that has actually proliferated in the United States because of immigrants who came over, 100 years ago, brought their crafts and from Norway and so on and so on. Hers is like the original versions of it. And part of that was they were done in linen thread. This is all from memory. Please forgive me if details of this are wrong, but I do know they are done in linen thread and like a high count fabric with linen thread. And at some point I was ordering from somewhere soon after I got that book. And I know I ordered some white linen thread thinking I was going to do something from that book, and I haven't. So I have that somewhere. Anyway, I have enjoyed my little experiment. Right before I was trying to go on the website to get to me, an important piece of information that I couldn't. And this sounds crazy, but I feel like the website has changed literally in the last couple of weeks. I may be wrong. I could not find a description, like you could get a description of these threads. Like if you go and look up this soie ovale, O-V-A-L-E, and you get to like the description page of it, then there's a little blurb about what it could be used for. I thought there was one page that had all the silk threads and you could compare them. I guess I might have been making that up. But to get like I was just trying to get a sense, not only what is the difference, I'm holding them in my hands. I can see what the difference is, but when would you use these? Like one thing that I was thinking before I got the set, again, knowing the two that are becoming well known in the cross stitch world, and this Trebizond, which I know I used once in a counted canvas work piece, because whatever thread was in the pattern they didn't have, and the store owner, I was like at a needlepoint store, had suggested this, and I remember using it. I remember it being thicker, and so sure enough, if you look at that, like I would never use that on cross stitch. It is a divisible thread, so this is it's a 3-stranded thing, and it is divisible. I don't know if I'd ever use it, but I was thinking some of these others would be much more in the needlepoint world. But then when you look at the fineness of them, with the exception of the linen, like I could do cross stitch pretty on the linen. I could still do it, but like these could all be used on like a 32 count fabric or even higher. So it's like I want to learn more about why the company has all these different kinds. Is there a specific use? How does it all evolve? I don't know. Anyway, so here are my blue threads. And like I said, this is a container I got at Michael's. It's like a pencil case or something. And I'm glad to have these. I will probably play some more with them. Do I know any stores that carry any of those others? Not that I know of. Could I get something if I wanted to, if I looked hard enough? Sure, usually that's the case. So anyway, like I said, I got this little package from a seller, and it was either Etsy or eBay, and it's different colors. So this is the sapphire colors colorway. You can get green and red and a whole bunch of others. Okay, so there we are. 34 minutes, not bad. So thank you so much for being here with me. I know there are so many Flosstubes videos to watch these days, so many people sharing so many amazing things, and the fact that you've come to spend a little time with me means a lot. I hope you have gotten gotten excited for the Needlework Expo releases that are coming soon. Support your LNSs, brick or mortar or online, whatever works for you. Again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Take care. Bye.